So imagine that H&M has a campaign on like socks, right? Well, if you have a big campaign on socks and you're in 5 stores in the country, you know your inventory level is 0. Right. So why would you want to show advertisement for socks? You want to have a fallback and show advertisement for like gloves or whatever that is, right? Based on the inventory level.
I love that concept. So you could base everything wrapped around your store levels, weather activities. You know, if London gets hammered with snow one day and all of a sudden you start putting out all your winter gear goes up on your screens. If it's really nice and you're doing those campaigns.
Everybody, Daniel here again with the Screenly Changelog, joined with Viktor Petersson and Chris Carter, the CEO and Chairman of Approyo, a global SAP services and cloud consultancy. Today, we have a very special episode. Going to be talking all things digital signage, SAP operations, and tech updates in general. So, as always, we're joined here with Screenly CEO and co-founder Viktor Petersson. And Viktor, kick it off.
Hey, well, again, it's kind of special episode, doing something we normally don't do, but like, you know, it's good to try new things. So thanks, Chris, for hopping on, talking about something that I'm not an expert on by any means, which is SAP, right? But so I guess before we dive in, Chris, do you want to tell the audience a bit about yourself, your backstory, how you ended up in the world, the universe that is SAP?
Well, my name is Chris Carter. I'm very fortunate. I am the founder of 3 technology companies at the moment. I'm a minority owner of the Carrick Rangers of the Northern Ireland Soccer Federation. I am also a minority owner in Extreme Fighting Networks, and I love technology. So thanks to my technology background, I get to do some of the things that I love to do, which is sports. And I started my career actually on a Commodore VIC-20 back in 1985. Nice. You weren't even born yet, Viktor. Daniel, I doubt you were born. You guys are so young.
You'd be surprised.
Well, my Commodore VIC-20 took me to Georgia Tech, and I started playing on computers. And I got an internship because my roommate was a deadbeat who didn't want to work with old mainframes. And I started playing on an old R2 SAP environment back in 1989 now. And from that day, I was playing on SAP. I was then moved into a role where, as an intern, I got to play on their upgrade that they were going through. And I took off. They offered me some work. I took it, and lo and behold, I've been working in SAP, cloud, AI ever since then. And if it's something new that I can learn and play with, I'm the guy that's doing it. Hell, I'm playing on Claude these days. I'm Snowflake. I'm Perplexity. Hell, I even learned how to use Canva, and I have no idea what I'm doing my poor marketing team. But that's where I started from, was a Commodore VIC-20 in the 1980s, and look where I am now. Now this thing has gotten more than I could have ever asked for on my VIC-20.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, let's talk a bit. I mean, I'm sure most people tuning in are at least heard about SAP, but I have friends who work in the SAP universe, and I am by no means an expert by any means, but I've dabbled my toes into a bit of like learn a little bit more about that. But maybe let's take a step back. What is SAP? Why is much of retail, or at least large-scale retail, running on SAP? I guess that's one of and manufacturing.
Manufacturing, finances, etc. You know, I just saw a stat a couple of weeks ago that said that 93.7% of all financial transactions in the world today run through an SAP system in one way, shape, or form. So imagine that. So you've got retail outlets that are using it. So they're doing their cash back and forth between their distributors and so on. What makes SAP, at least in my opinion, so popular is the fact that it's an all-encompassing solution. So you get your retail, you get your finance, you get your warehouse management, you get your AP, ARs, all 401k activities. Everything can be bundled together. Your warehouse management, shipping, distribution, manufacturing. And so what they've really done is they put in industries, and they did an industry focus. They took the big big monolithic tool, and then broke it out by industries and to be able to help organizations, because a lot of it is the same no matter what industry you're in. And then now they've thrown on top of that customer satisfaction activities, customer support, AI-based activities. And now you've just got this all-in-one. You don't have to worry about getting a second CRM package or a second customer support desk tool or others. They literally have things that you can integrate. And the nice thing is they work with, I think it's like 5,000 partners now to be able to use their tools to integrate if something doesn't fit right or deploy right. And by no means do I drink the SAP Kool-Aid. We build tools and things around it, but it does give you a really nice starting line, no matter what size your company is. As a startup, we use SAP, and we just build building blocks. I play Tetris with companies. How can we use it? Daniel understood the Tetris, right? Thank you, Daniel. I love playing Tetris as a young man and as an adult. So I love building and figuring out how things move together.
Yeah, Tetris is pre 85, if I'm correct.
Yeah, there was just a great movie out about that.
Yeah. Yes, it's Netflix.
Yes, that was awesome. Great.
That was a really good movie. Yeah, a lot of interesting insights. But let's go back to that. Like, so I think it's important to highlight just the sheer level of, I guess, maybe complexity is negative loaded word, but it's like if you look at these big SAP shops, they have departments full of just SAP engineers, essentially, right, to just run and like doing upgrades. Not something like it's not click a button. It's like a big project, right? So, I mean, that I guess it really is its own universe.
It really,
and it's really like different from most of us.
Yeah, I'll give you've got your enterprise grade organizations, these multi-billion-dollar Coca-Colas and Caterpillars and such like that, and they do have large groups that take on the responsibility for that. But you've also got the SMB network, where we are very happy to help organizations, where our team comes in and we're taking care of the technology, we're taking care of the day-to-day, the cloud, the hosting, and they don't have to hire millions or hundreds of people or even 50 people or 20 people. They just hire us and we take care of that activity for them, and they get to do what they do best, run their company. So you get both worlds. But there are times when you're doing upgrades, I need everybody on your company to be involved, because you're the ones that do the day-to-day activities. Same thing with the billion-dollar boys, I call them. They have to have the people that are going to be there to do the testing, to do the updates. They'll bring companies like ours and help them with the day-to-day activities of those upgrades. But at the end of the day, if you're an SMB customer, you don't have to have 20 people, 50 people taking on that responsibility. If you've got a CIO or director of IT who's taking care of the networking and maybe some database activity and others, you can have a tool that's inside your organization that, yes, it's going to cost you maybe a couple $100,000 to get licenses. And then we use the cloud. We want to compress the cost structure. I'm all about my ESG activities, about compression of cost, compression of the planet, and being able to work with a cloud-based activity. It's, for me, those are fun things, but it's also educational and it's helpful. Not everybody's the same company across the board, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I just know, like, I know H&M is a massive SAP shop, for instance,
yes.
right?
Oh, yes.
And I know people have worked on SAP at H&M, and like that drives their entire organization, right? Everything from like finance to stock, inventory levels, ERP, everything.
Oh, right? Yes. And they're a great example of what they do and how they do it. They've taken on the tool. They've taken on what the tool is meant for, rather than trying to reinvent the tool. We call them Z codes. I'm a old developer, so if you would have to create a Z code to be able to fix something or do something that is outside the norm, H&M actually uses the tool the way it was designed, and they're seeing the benefits of that. It's great for them.
Yeah. Interesting. So we understand now roughly why H&M exists. Not why H&M exists. They exist for very different reasons. But actually, funny anecdote about SAP. Chris, you're probably familiar with SUSE Linux, right? And I would say SAP is the sole reason why they still exist. Like
very much so, because when they chose SUSE in order to do their S4 and to do the migration, everybody's like, okay, who's paying what and how's things going?
Germans dealing with Germans, right? That's really what it came down to.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's funny because everybody asking in the Linux world, like, who's actually using SUSE? Because like, no, you never hear it in the mainstream Linux world. But then you realize that actually these are what's pay the bills, really.
Yes, I agree.
So moving into like, some of these SAP implementations, of course, like one way to some people in a company might regard it is like, okay, it's like the brain, but also it's kind of a black box in the way. And those setups, they're nothing if they're not actually communicating the data that's being ingested and transformed and outputted. We, of course, are a digital signage shop, and so showing data is one of our main things. Maybe like talk to us about with some of these large deployments you've done work for and consulted for. Like, talk to us about that kind of last mile human component where, okay, you do the setup, but then the human actually is the one who has to see the data, see the dashboard. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's a great question because SAP has got some great dashboards in it. And I tell companies all the time, use your dashboards to see what's going on in your company on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-to-minute basis. So you've got your CEO dashboard, you've got your CFO, you've got your directors. Every part of the organization can have a dashboard. And the data that's coming out of it is your data. Now, I'm telling people all the time, look, you've got AI and you've got these AI initiatives, but if you start taking your data here out of your black box, out of your SAP environment, and start putting it into ChatGPT or put it into Gemini. There was somebody that at a company that I've been dealing with that literally took a 22-tabbed Excel document of financial and HR information and stuck it up in ChatGPT and started asking it a whole bunch of questions based on it. And I literally had to go to the CISO. So you do realize your employee took all your financial and HR data, put it into an open sourced environment, and now that open source environment owns your data. He was so perplexed. So bring it back in. Keep it inside your SAP environment. You want to play with Geminis and other things, get the enterprise solution, pay the $100 a month for it, and keep it in your facility because it'll give you a lot of information. But the first start point is use that information here for your dashboards. That's a great thing with dashboarding and being able to give that information. And it's a balance. It's an up and down of hows and what's and where you want to see and who wants to see what and why you want to see it. But it's so important on our day-to-day basis of just being able to have the eyesight of what's going on in our companies. And too many companies don't use it at all, Daniel, to be honest.
Yeah. One thing we see a lot with customers is they'll get some dashboarding solution, whether it's an SAP shop or not. And the thing is that those dashboards, they kind of just like go to die in email land. And everyone has the link, but nobody really opens and looks at
Correct.
it. So it's not quite useful if it's doesn't actually have eyeballs.
No, that's part of the problem. If you send that information out, me, I'm the CEO, so I want to see information on my companies. I want to see it on my customers. I want to see what's going on. So I'm constantly looking at the details, and then I get a little bit granular on some of the details because that's just who I am and what I do. When people are given these capabilities and they waste them, that is a darn off shame because it could really open up their eyes on what is happening. You've got a part of your manufacturing that's getting ready for Christmas already. You've got parts of your team from an advertising standpoint that is going forward. We were talking about, Victor and I were talking about retail activities. H&M is using those dashboards to understand 8 months in advance of what's going on. They look at the back end and they see what's happened back there, but they're also starting to review what's going to happen and when they're going to happen, how they're going to happen, and the distribution activity and the channels. And it's literally across the entire organization. So Daniel, you and I are on the same page. If you're getting those and you're not even clicking on it once, at least do once a day. Look at it in the morning, see what happened from the day before so you can understand what you need to do. And it's so much more powerful for them.
Or chuck it up on a screen in a common area, because that's another use case that we see quite a lot coming to us is we call the concept of deskless workers, right? Imagine manufacturing sites where people do not have a desk to go to, right? But you still want to be able to show them data in at least near real time about events around their manufacturing or distribution, all those things, right? I think
on the TV and distribution, exactly.
Yeah,
you throw it up there. Here's my manufacturing numbers. Here's what this press is doing. Here's what this distribution is doing. Here's what's getting transitioned to this area, and they're up on big screens.
Yes.
I just walked around in a manufacturing company in Indiana, November or October, and we started talking about some of the things. And one of the recommendations I had given them months earlier is throw their data up so that everybody can see where they're at and what they're doing. So now it's 2 punch presses or 2 big presses per screen, and they literally has started moving them down the line. And now they see everything that's going on. What's their waste? What's their product? Good product? What's being shipped to the next stage in the development? And they started tracking it. And they're now putting it up for every single one of their presses. And they've got literally 100 plus presses because they're a third-tier automobile manufacturing of parts. And that is hugely important because part of that is right here. If I'm working that press and I see the power that I'm doing successfully, now one of the things that they give feedback, and I hate to say this because I'm dealt with it, is it's a union shop, and the union is like, I don't want to see any bad things up there. I just want to see positivity for my employees. Well, you got to show them the good with the bad. You can't, and so they're dealing with that on their own. That's not me. Hey guys, I recommend good, bad, and otherwise. Show them the world. Show them what's happening in their little world right here on this punch press so they can be positive. And if there's something to fix and to be beneficial towards them, that's outstanding. That's exactly what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
I think another thing we see with dashboards too are, issues with, okay, you mentioned people throwing a whole spreadsheet into ChatGPT. There's also security concerns when throwing, confidential data into a digital signage system. So, Victor, maybe you can speak a bit about some of the ways that Screenly tries to deal with that problem through authentication for our users.
Yeah. I mean, this is really we work with some big Fortune 500s, and for them, security is in particular. It doesn't really matter if it's an SAP or Power BI, wherever the data lives, right? Making sure that device can't be compromised is paramount, right? Because if you're just chucking up that and you think of it as oh, here's a Windows PC with a browser that nobody's got to take care of, good luck with that when your compliance team comes knocking, right? It's about thinking about those life cycles around the data, the device powering the data, and I think that's often lost here. People just throw up a stick and they think they're probably done with the problem. So I think that's super important to kind of factor into the conversation as well, making sure that these devices are secured properly in terms of enterprise grade security.
And that's a big piece right there. You must make sure from a security standpoint, you're putting the proper data up. You're not giving them everything. You want to show them the world, but you don't need to show them every single component of the world from a security standpoint.
Yes.
I know when we were walking through that facility, one of the things that they said, please, no cameras, no documentation, no nothing. It's you gotta be, security is such an undervalued and under-supported activity. When you've got a CISO and you're allowing certain pieces and you're not out there on the shop floors, if you're in a manufacturing or a retailer, and you're not validating the proper information, that's on you. That's the CISO's line in there. So I always tell CISOs, make sure what you want people to see is secured and legal, because those are two different things.
Yeah, I mean, it's also tricky, right? Because, I mean, we always have a saying, which is security culture is what happens because nobody's watching, right? That's the real litmus test of a good security culture. But it's I guess it's very much difficult to do that in a blue collar setting, whereas like in a white collar setting, right? Because like obviously different expectations of security and all that. So I guess slicing that data and just segmenting that off is a way to accomplish that, so that you don't necessarily
100% correct right there. I'm very fortunate. My father ran a manufacturing company when I was a young man, until he sold it and retired. I got to see. I was a blue collar kid. I was on the shop floor all summer long. I was working with people, and some people just don't care. Hey, it's not my role. It's not my responsibility. I don't care. Whatever happens, happens. Well, then you get others who are intimately involved, and they want to work between blue and white, and they're out there and they're taking care of them and they're being responsible. And you've got to find those people who are willing to step forward and take responsibility for what the activities are. And it's everybody's role. And it starts from a mentality from the company head all the way down. I used to say my dad was intimately involved with everybody in the organization. He would come in at 5 o'clock in the morning, open the doors for everybody in the manufacturing world, and he would be there through first and second shifts. And he would make sure that he knew what they were working on, how they were working, not to micromanage because he's had people, but to make sure that they were intimately involved in it. And when they started getting more technology and he would get intimately involved with them. And it was wonderful, because when people are involved in all facets of the business, and even they don't need to know the greatest details, but just, hey, we're doing this because this is going to help us with this, and this. And we're so thankful that you're part of this, thankful for being a part of and helping us do this. That's when you really see the benefits of those activities.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're looking at things, if you're thinking about it from like a corporate espionage kind of vantage point, right? If you are trying to get data, like it's probably like you want to find those disgruntled employees. That's true for white collar and blue collar. It doesn't really matter, right? You want to find those people who do not care, right? So it's just like, how do you sandbox and silo things as much as you can?
Yes, from a corporate espionage, thank God I've never had to really deal with one particular. I've been blessed in that regard. With a knock on wood now. But you do have those activities that are out there, and those bad players who are trying to find something that can, I know of a company here in Wisconsin. They had an individual who was with their organization. He left and he took all their data. He just had it on a drive, and they found out. And it came down, they didn't have policies against that. Literally, he could go into any drive on any system. And then they found out that they allowed the download of everybody's laptops. You were allowed to, there were certain individuals with the company that could download and upload anything on their laptop and their phones into their laptop and then onto a file server. They were finding home videos, home photos, all this stuff that was their personal stuff on their personal phones. And so they completely started locking that down. They were so bad that it was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, one thing with digital signs that we've been, we've had this feature, but we're like raising it to people when they're putting it across large organizations, is using team workspaces as a security barrier,
Yes.
Which seems, for someone who's security minded, is common sense. But I mean, it seems like you're going into some large organizations and people just have access to everything.
Everything. So we're,
and it's. I mean, yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, like, this branched out to like everything from like network segmentation to like user privileges. Like, this is such a big topic, and it's culture ultimately. Like, do people care? Because it does carry friction with it, right? And a lot of organizations just take the path of least resistance.
You're 100% right. And you were actually speaking to what I was going to make reference to is you got like, we're in the SAP environments. I lock down and I tell companies all the time, when you're going out there, AR does not touch AP and does not touch this and this. These people, everybody is segmented. But people forget about that in the rest of their organization. Okay, CEO should have access to these areas, but he doesn't need to have access to this and this and this. And then you've got individuals who are got corporate computers and stuff, and they just forget about those. And then most companies don't have a CISO. Let's be honest; it's strictly the CIO, director of IT, whoever, and that.
Or if they even have a CIO,
exactly.
Right?
And they're so burdened with so much going on. Hell, just from people going out there and playing with AI and doing things. Oops, sorry. I don't know why that came up on there. Apologize for that, guys. I thought I turned it off of here.
That's all right.
I did turn it off on there, but
right.
It's still coming up. Gotta love Max. But they're literally so busy with everything else that CISO or the security activity gets 10% of their time, and that AI gets 10% of their time, and the network gets, and it's all these little pieces. They don't have the time, the budget, the bandwidth in their brain to do all of them at the same time, and it's where hackers live.
Yeah, I mean, and if you definitely throw in like BYOD kind of scenarios, that makes it a lot more difficult.
I hate BYODs. I tell everybody, we are buying you a laptop. It has got our image on it. That's the image you get. That's what you use. Nothing more, nothing less. If you want to play with anything from an AI perspective, it's either the AI tools on your image or you play somewhere else because you're not getting access to the network. And then we've had people that have sent information from our image to their Gmail accounts through accounts, and we bust them right away. It's a one and done. And that stuff does not happen.
No, but it's tricky because it's always, I mean, security is always at friction with productivity, right? Because ultimately people just want to do their job with the minimum of friction, right? And it's a lie to try to pretend that security isn't friction, right? That's just doing people a disservice, right?
Hey, I get pissed off every month that I got to redo my passwords as well. I get it. I'm that guy. I'm like, okay, where's my cheat sheet? What did I put last time? Well, now I need to make sure I'm not doing it again 4 months later or 5, 6 months later, whatever the case may be.
Fortunately, the latest guidelines suggest that do not rotate passwords because it's the worst possible thing you can do from a secure perspective. But finally, the security compliance rule that's caught up with that is a terrible practice.
Yes. Thank God I get to use this. Thank God I've got Macs that I have to use my finger or my face and nothing more than that. And a lot of times to be able to gain access to the systems that I've got, and it's thank God.
Yeah, but I mean, I think some of these security and productivity trade-offs are becoming a lot more pronounced now. Especially with like tools like on desktop agents, for example, and like there are plenty of companies who are taking the ID GAF attitude about it, and they're also getting a lot more done per employee. So, it's definitely not, everyone should be secure and that's the only way. It's like, well, there's a real cost to that. So
there really is. There's a real cost to it.
I mean,
Victor has yet to issue the Screenly policy on Claudebot. So, we'll see.
Well, that's true. I mean, but it's. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's binary, because saying no is a terrible mistake, right? It needs to be calculated risk, and I think it depends on the data set to a great degree, right? I mean, we have a lot of discussion internally, like what is source code these days? Is that proprietary, super secret? Like 10 years ago, I would say absolutely yes. Today, I'm like, I don't really care anymore, because we have to assume that any source code can be rewritten, if not today, in 6 or 12 months from scratch with very little effort. So I think my tolerance for this has, well, I guess my view has changed a lot in the last, 6 months, because the world has changed and we kind of need to move with the world, right? I think it's naive to stick hold to like an old narrative.
I'm going to say yes. It is an old narrative. I still worry about some of the things that should be proprietary. I'm still inquisitive with using AI-based tools and just allowing everybody's work to be funneled into it, to be utilized. When somebody out there, let's just take the, let's say people that write books and people that write music. I'm going to just use those two because those seem to be the easy ones to do. If somebody's writing that song or they're writing that book, they're the ones that have the mind share. There should be some type of, I don't know if compensation is the right word, but some type of validation and understanding that this is Daniel's book and this is Viktor's songs and these are their properties. They own those. They're selling them. They're utilizing. They put in the hard work and efforts. You look at things like Sono, and maybe this is getting off topic a little bit, but you look at the Sonos and you look at the lawsuit that's coming down with the, what was it? It was ChatGPT and Random House or somebody like that. And they just literally took the entire New York's library and started going through and started utilizing it. Well, those are people's hard assets. You know, my open source codes we use a tool and we built a tool called Overwatch. Now we use a backbone of CheckMK on that, but that is theirs. We compensate them on a yearly basis for that tool. And then we build up the world from a security and a standpoint from not only AI or the homomorphic encryption and other activities on, but at the end of the day, that backbone is theirs and I compensate them for that. I think there should be something said for that in our world as well, especially from a technology world or others. And maybe I'm too old to grasp some new stuff, kind of like using rap songs where they're using Sting and Sting's getting $1,000 a day or $5,000 a week or whatever he gets for those songs in perpetuity.
I mean, it's really difficult. I mean, it's because there's both a moral argument to it, but there's also a pragmatic argument to it, right? And like the reality is with the current models we have today, if you look at like Opus 4.6 or something like that, where it's like, I would say that they write better code than 95% of all the engineers.
Oh, God, yes.
Out of the box.
Absolutely. So that's a great point, Viktor. And let's go down that rabbit hole. Because I make the comments all the time. I'm very fortunate last year. I did about 51 different university speeches. And I tell these kids all the time, you need to be bigger, better, faster, and stronger to create with AI as your code base. And then it's going to help you because you need to take this and you need to design between technical and business. You need to put that together. You cannot just be a code monkey anymore. I am so done with being a code monkey myself. And then put that information into Claude or put it into whatever your tool you're using and help it build we do that with our SAP element. So you need to be bigger, better, faster, stronger for your AI to be bigger, better, faster, stronger and help you design that code. And then that code, I still would say that code is your code or your company's code because you're in balance with the tools to design and build the applications and the tool sets that you're using for that.
I fully agree with that. So basically, like, well, we've had a lot of internal memos on this, and it's basically like, I expect like 10x output from every engineer, essentially, like as of now. And you're an architect. You're not an IC.
Yes, exactly. You are the architect for that. Let the tool do your code monkey work. You architect what's going to happen and come out of it. And then you keep fidgeting with it because you're the ones with the brain and the eyes and what you want and how you want it and where you develop. Now, your design may skew to the right or the left based upon what comes back and how you're doing your testing and activities. And the system may help guide you and is going to give you some directions, but it's up to you if you want to bring it back this side or if you want. So I fully agree with you on that. I think we actually mandate every single one of our developers who are doing any type of ABAP, Java coding, anything that we use for SAP environments must run their code through our environments. And they have to be tested and they have to be validated before we even put it into our sandboxes to be utilized.
Yeah, we've taken it one step further. I have issued a mandate internally that I've banned my engineers from writing code by hand.
Ah, I love it.
Except if there's a really good edge case where you need to justify why.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
Which is like, if it's like really low level stuff, perhaps you might need to do it, but very sort of domain specific, where the data sets are not well enough or well trained enough. Generally speaking, I don't want anybody to write code by hand anymore. But I think the interesting, I mean, we're taking a big detour here. Daniel is probably getting bored by now, but we take a big detour here. But to me, what matters today, and this is kind of where I started, where I said, like, I don't think source code is worth that much anymore. To me, what actually is worth anything today is, what are your insights? What do you know that nobody else knows? That's the first one. And the second one is taste, which is extremely subjective, because you can't say design a nice website. It means nothing.
That's like somebody told me the other day, well, I'm going to design an SEO-based landing page that does this, this, and this, and it's going to look like that. Can we get a little bit more granular? Can you, instead of just boiling the ocean, can you bring it down? How do you want this SEO? How do you want this web page? How do you want the colors? How do you want, what are you going to do from a landing page perspective? And so I'm right there with you on that, Victor. It's those pieces of the puzzle that are really going to drive the next evolution of that.
Yeah. And so, Chris, you're also the founder of AI Predictive Analytics. I guess it's a layer on top of SAP, Mugatu.
Mugatu AI.
Mugatu AI.
Do you guys know who Mugatu is?
Oh, Zula.
Yes! Winner chicken. Thank you, Victor. My favorite, outside of Darth Vader, of course, who I say is my stepfather, Mugatu was my favorite villain of all time. And I just love that Will Ferrell character. So I finally named a company after him. And I made it after an AI-based company because people think that AI is bad and it's a villain. So it is a predictive analytics, Mugatu is the company, and Overwatch is the tool. And it is a layer that we put on top of SAP companies or non-SAP companies. It monitors about 4,600 touch points to date of ports, tools, in and out data. It can be the SAP environments, it could be the databases, it can be Oracle, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. And it sits there and it's literally it's kind of like the Death Star. It forms this nice surface across it. We don't have a vulnerability, yes, thanks to the pen testing, but knock on wood, we won't. But yet, literally, it manages, monitors, and supports companies who want to use a tool to make sure that you're not getting data out or in that shouldn't be as part of your AI-based environments. And we use homomorphic encryption to secure it, support organizations, because once you use a homomorphic encrypted tool, if you take that data anywhere and got in some way, somehow, you wouldn't be able to use it anyways because it doesn't match the encryption activities that are there. And so, we took a tool, built it, and spun it into that organization. Now we use it for every one of our customers. So
I guess I guess to recap that in more traditional IT terms, like it's a CM essentially, from a traditional security perspective. Yeah. Good stuff. I wanted to go back to SAP a bit more because we've had some internal conversation, actually with some people at SAP as well, about bringing screens into the SAP universe, right? And the example we talked about before already is something like H&M, right? And their entire company runs on SAP, so I suppose it is a good example. Everything from marketing campaigns to budget spans to how they manage the retail stores, they're all managed in SAP, essentially, right? So what I wanted to explore with you is, imagine a company like SAP, a company like H&M, wanted to control all their campaigns and what's showing in their environments in their retail store. So all the screens that are in there. Imagine hypothetically they were running on the Screenly platform, right? H&M is not a customer of ours, yes, but let's imagine for the sake of that. How would something like that look, right? So imagine you have your campaigns, you have your brand assets, meaning the videos and the images and whatnot is that being showed on that you want to show on the screens. How would something like that look? Like, I'm curious about both the terminology for this in the SAP universe, because I think a lot of people are unfamiliar with that, but also like how it would look end to end. Like, because imagine from my vantage point, you would basically say this campaign starts on this date and ends this date, and it should have these assets and it should show in these screens, these stores, and then you have some tagging. But walk me through more of the nuances of that. How would that look like based on your experience in that?
Yeah, that's a great point, because I don't know if you have in the UK, we have here in the United States, Kohl's department stores.
Yeah, no, we don't have it here, but I'm familiar. I used to live in the US, so I'm familiar with Kohl's.
So Kohl's department store uses SAP as their backbone. All of their stores have business objects systems running in their stores for their registers. All their back end data, everything goes to a business object server. And then that data, because BobJ, we call it BobJ, has really nice screening capabilities and has dashboarding and other activities. Their stores and their associates can see in the back rooms what's going on, how retail's going, how sales are going, what activities are going on, what campaigns. So right there, just as H&K, the activities, H&M, excuse me, one of my customers is H&K, so H&M can do the very same thing. They run that data through business objects. The business object screens are up all over the facilities, and based upon their location, if it's in the kids clothing, if it's in the shoe department, or if it's in the home goods departments, they will be able to see what their information is based upon that information that it's fed into business objects. And what's really cool about that is it's all integrated into each other. Now, is it the best and brightest? Sometimes I think it's not necessarily the best, but it can be updated. There are third-party tools, and I'm sure you guys have looked at those and built activities wrapped around it. You could use an API and be able to get all that information out of SAP, be able to put it in something that's probably more colorful and user-friendly or user-visual for those activities. But these Kohl's specifically does that at every one of their stores nationally and internationally.
Yeah, I was not thinking about employee facing. I was more thinking about customer.
Oh, so you want the screens, right, with their different commercials and that? More of an advertising blitz. So you would need to take your advertising side of it, put that data into. Where would you put that? You would probably put that into some type of a back-end server system that would run to each and every store. Each and every store would have a feed, kind of like when you go to the airport, or when I go to the airport here. Milwaukee Airport has this network. I don't even know what the network is. It's got a little green bar on the side. It's got news that comes in. It's got a TV show or whatever, a sporting event or something. They tend to run Premier League or some type of activity in Europe. But that is a central feed that comes in. It's usually a web-based feed. And it same thing could happen with any of those stores. They just run the feed to each and every store based upon the department and the activities.
I was thinking one step further. It's like I'm not a fan of feeds because from a research perspective, they're not good for customer-facing stuff because of diversion of attention. So I'm thinking more video content, images of your latest campaigns, TV ads, essentially, like remashed for the screen. But the level that I want to get to is not just that, because that's just relatively easy scheduling. But the real cool thing that I'm probing at here is tying this into inventory level. So imagine that H&M has a campaign on like socks, right? Well, if you have a big campaign on socks and you're in 5 stores in the country, you know your inventory level is 0. Right. So why would you want to show advertisement for socks? You want to have a fallback and show advertisement for like gloves or whatever that is, right? Based on the inventory level.
I love that concept. So you could base everything wrapped around your store levels, weather activities. If London gets hammered with snow one day and all of a sudden you start putting out all your winter gear goes up on your screens. If it's really nice and you're doing those campaigns. So
sunglasses, umbrellas, all that stuff, right?
I love that idea. So I would say that would be part of CX, which is the customer experience module. You tie that to your inventory levels at each and every store, base that on that. Now, I don't know of anybody that's doing that. I don't know if anybody has thought about that. Victor, you and I might have a new business idea that we can explain with.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, we've called it like we've looked at other things, but like temperature and weather, we've done things around that before. But I really want to get into the ERP data because that's where you could do really cool things.
You'd have to get them to open up the environment and for tracking purposes. And I'm trying. You gotta be careful with that. Most companies don't like to open up their systems.
Oh no!
So you have to
the cool thing with our system though is that we could do it on the local network. So the device itself can pull that data. So our backend would not even have to be able to talk to it.
So if you're doing that just strictly on the local network, that's easy enough. You integrate that with an API into their inventory and the warehouse management activity and go from there.
That's right. So we have something called Edge Apps, which is like a developer environment that runs directly on the device. We have a TPM, we could do MTLS, we could do all that jazz directly on the device. But then you can make decisions on the edge, which is why it's important, right? Because this will matter, and this needs to be relatively real time because weather condition can change rapidly, inventory level can change rapidly. You want to have this right on the edge, not in the cloud.
Or even more importantly, things where like sensor data where millisecond time spans really matter. So for example, if someone picks up an inventory item, if there's camera data, there can even be some type of image recognition where, hey, the person in front of this sign is a female between these age ranges or a male between these age ranges. That changes the content.
Daniel,
so there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff that opens up when you're doing it locally.
So the Minority Report with Tom Cruise and the signage just based on your eyes and what you're looking at and how you're until he cut his eyeballs out and got new ones. But I digress. That is the stuff that I know is going to be part of our future. You're going to see something then different than I see, than Daniel sees. We're going to have a world where, and you know what? They're starting to do this kind of stuff in China. I'll be very honest. They're
I mean, you already have it. Like I've seen these things at like signage events for like the last 5 years, right? But I mean, to me, like this goes way beyond retail, right?
Oh God,
it also works in like in industry, right? So imagine we're going back to your example of the dashboards in your manufacturer, your presses, right? Well, same story, right? The screens talk to the machines, and if there's an event, boom, change the content.
Exactly.
And events that can really matter, like temperature, pressure, weight readings that like could signal, safety issues. Right?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. If we can get instantaneous sensory data put out immediately to be able to, that's now instantaneous gratification. And from a services organization, a manufacturing, retail, that's where the power lies. Because now think about it in another direction. Think about it from the advertisers of Nike or these companies. You're walking through, let's just stay with the retail store. You're sticking in the retail store, you're working in a mall, and it knows based upon, let's be honest, Apple phones talk, iPhones, all these things send us this. We know they track us. You go into a mall, and based upon this device in your pocket that is instantly talking to them, you want a pair of Nike Air Jordan Low 1s in powder blue North Carolina colors. And it's going to, all of a sudden, you're going to see signage over here. Go to Finish Line, or you're going to see this. Go to the Nike store. Your size 13 is in stock here at this store. That's the instantaneous, because now all the devices are truly talking with each other. And we got to worry about security.
Apple unfortunately made it slightly more difficult to do that because now, I'm not sure you know, but Apple devices randomize the MAC address. So
Yes.
you used to be able to do that super easily. So you used to be able to just track a MAC address over Bluetooth, right, or Wi-Fi. But now, by default, Apple device at least, I'm not sure about Android the world, but they randomize the MAC address, so it's hard to do.
It's tough, yes.
But I think more generally speaking, though, like it's the big idea is positioning signage as something more than just an advertisement, where it's just flashing buy this now, discount, buy now, right? There's ways with sensor data, with edge apps, to make signage part of the entire customer experience, part of the shopping interface, that instead of being an annoyance is actually a total enhancement.
Imagine this, if you would. Imagine you've got a shopping list you've put into a phone or a pad or your email or whatever. You have a shopping list. Just say food shopping. I'm going to Whole Foods and I want to get these 20 items. And you walk into that store and it literally tells you aisle by aisle, area by area, where each one of those items would be for your needs to help you out. Because let's be honest, I'm a husband, I'm a father of two, but I do not go into grocery stores that often because I can't find the stuff that I need. So when my wife sends me with a list, I have no idea where I'm going. But imagine, like, here, perfect example. I have my Google glasses. My Google glasses start talking to me, or with the new ones with the screen capabilities, and it says aisle 1. 5 feet ahead.
Yeah.
Boom. Boom.
So there are standards for this stuff, right? I haven't seen them very widely deployed. I mean, they're deployed more in malls than in retail, than in grocery stores I've seen. But like you can do like these Google, I think Google, what was it called? Google did a big project in that. I'm blank on the name, but like basically like doing beacons. So like GPS inside is dead, right? Can't use it. So they have these beacons that Eddystone? I blank on the name, but basically these beacons for indoor navigation. So you can do that because that's the only way you can do it.
And that's what they were using with their Amazon stores. It was the Amazon stores that was doing that. And now they're moving those just to the Whole Foods instead of doing those minor. Well, you still get them in stadiums. You can walk in. Yeah. All you do is scan. Whatever you pick up, the camera systems and all the beacons and the systems know what you're doing. And so when you come to that main gate, you've already paid for that 24-ounce bottle or can of beer or whatever, water or soda. And now think about that on a larger scale, just knowing from an indoor beacon GPS activity. That would make my life a lot easier. I wouldn't keep wandering to the store.
Yeah, no, but it's all these things are like, it's really challenging because you're balancing between creepiness and utility.
Yeah,
there've been a lot of pushbacks on like cameras in signage, for instance, because people like there've been quite a few lawsuits around this stuff because people like, I didn't even consent to record me. A lot of pushbacks in the industry at large because of, I mean, I get it. Like it's we have enough CCTV out there as it is.
That is true as well.
Not just record, but record, analyze, and then send out more manipulative advertisements. So
well, that's why Minority Report failed in the end. The two individuals went away, and Tom Cruise lived happily ever after with his new girl.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on the hour here, guys. One thing I wanted to add too was, Chris, you've published quite a few books on Amazon, and all SAP related. What's the next one?
So I literally have, I think, 7 SAP books and 10 AI books. I know I have a couple of other ones that I've sputtered in there. I'm actually working on another artificial intelligence book. I want to talk more about small language models. I'm talking more about, to me, what right now is really, really fascinating is the fact that China is not using the top of the line chips, and they're really, really digging into their LLMs and their SLMs, and they're using open source capabilities, even beyond what DeepSeek does. And I think that that's so important because we in the United States and some of the European Union, all we do is throw hardware. We throw chips. We buy more chip and billions and billions.
Bigger the better. It's in our cultural.
It's in our DNA. Hey, that's why I love the Big Mac and the large fries and blah, blah, blah. But to them,
that's right.
It's all about getting granular. You don't need to boil an ocean, but as soon as you put in that information, it literally goes, okay, you want to just talk about Monopoly games and how best win Monopoly? Boom, it goes over there, and then now it's boiling a subset with SLMs rather than the entire ocean. It's literally a second longer rather than a millisecond. But at the end of the day, they're using some of the oldest chipsets on the market. They don't even get our good chips. They don't even get good AMD chips, let's be honest, and Intel chips. But at the end of the day, it is fascinating to me.
Oh, absolutely. And I think everybody's counted out Apple as like they've lost AI war. I'm extremely bullish on Apple.
Wait, they're coming out with that stuff in like 3 months or 4 months or something like that. I am holding positions just to see what they're coming out with. I think that's going to be...
They got to give NVIDIA a run for their money, I think, in the long run.
You know, they've got the brains for it, and they definitely have the money for it.
Well, yeah, exactly. No, I think it's super interesting. And I mean, the last thing I would say on LLMs, I think the billion-dollar opportunity is the person who figures out how to train a small language model on COBOL will have the opportunity of a lifetime. Oh. If you can figure out how to write COBOL code, then you gotta laugh all the way to the bank.
Oh yes, because there's so many of those systems still out there that need to be modified, supported, updated, upgraded. Man, that would be something.
If you can find a big enough data set to train that, I think you would make a lot of money.
Well, Chris, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I know we'll certainly be in touch more about getting digital signage as easily as possible into some of these SAP operations you're running.
Yeah, I'd love to talk.
What's the best place for people to find out more about you and your companies and services?
Yeah, best place is go to my LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. If you do Chris Carter and you type in Approyo, APPROYO, I'm the only Chris Carter at Approyo, so that's a good thing. And then connect with me. Tell me you heard me on the podcast. I love coffee and I love bourbon, and I travel the globe all the time, so I'm always willing to meet with people, no matter if it's London or if it's the US or when I go to Germany. It's funny, I meet people all the time. We sit down in coffee shops and bourbon houses, and we just talk tech and life in general. Life's too short. You got to enjoy it. So find me there.
Indeed. Well, let me know next time you're in London. Would love to catch up in person.
I would love to do that. And if anybody's a follower of the Carrick Rangers, find me in Northern Ireland. I will definitely bring you to a match.
Awesome. We might have some customers and partners in Northern Ireland.
If anybody wants to come to Ireland and have a couple pints with me and watch a great soccer team, we just won the Shield, so we're on a hot streak.
Good stuff.
Hey. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Screenly Changelog, and we'll put everyone's details in the show notes, and see you on the next one.
Amazing. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys.
Cheers.